In this education system that we are in, we are conditioned to study, get good grades, earn good job, and make some good money and live it. But this education system doesn't really teach us how to manage that money and keep them with finances, taxes, insurance, and the list can go on. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Candid Conversations with Chaarmikha. This is a podcast where we converse with change makers and gain perspective. Today we have a very special guest with us, Tarun Masapeta. He's an entrepreneur and a sustainability leader. He founded Project Eiffel, which stands for Educate India Financially. And as the name suggests, this project works on financial education amongst different demographics, not just in India, but also abroad. He was selected as one of the 60 delegations for the United People's Globals class this year to fly to the Hurricane Island on a fully funded trip. And today, in this podcast of Candid Conversations, we'll chat a bit about financial literacy and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the podcast, Tarun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, Chaarmikha. And let me start off by saying congratulations on this wonderful initiative that you started.
Thank you. Thank you so much. For some context, Tarun and I are friends since childhood, and it's been a while that we caught up. So how's everything going?
It's going great, and we definitely should catch up sometime.
We should. And in your description, quote unquote, a sustainability leader, right? What does this really mean? And we generally, at least I generally associate sustainability with, environment, climate change, etc., etc. But what exactly is sustainability according to you? And tell us a little bit about Project Eiffel.
Right. So sustainability comprises of three. We have a lot of goals under sustainability, but majorly they come under three different topics. One, as you mentioned, is environment. And under environment, you have climate change, clean energy, your clean water bodies and everything. And then two other topics that majorly cover all of sustainability is one, economy. So how do you eradicate poverty? How do you get better developing economies? And how do you make it a much more equitable place? And the third topic is education. So how do I get people educated? How do we work on getting education to the most remote areas? And if you look at all of this, it's interrelated. So how do you tackle climate change when you get people educated? Or like if everybody can afford electric cars, or if everybody can afford solar powered homes. So they're all interrelated, but sustainability is not only refined to climate change or anything related to the environment. It's much more than that. And under this, we actually have an agenda called the 2030 Agenda set by the UN with 17 SDGs. SDGs are Sustainable Developmental Goals. So all these 17 SDGs, again, they vary from environment to economy and to education. So working on all of these, you have a perfectly sustainable world. And I hope we do hit that 2030 agenda, because it's not an easy task, but a lot of us are working towards it. And coming to the definition of a sustainability leader, so I was certified by United People Global, the same organization that would be flying me out to Hurricane Island. And I basically learned about all 17 SDGs, and I started my own action on SDG number 4, which is quality education, and SDG number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. And that was how Project Eiffel was born, and that's how Project Eiffel was started. Project Eiffel it started out as a little initiative, which I thought would or should remain only towards a small community within Hyderabad right here. But then as I was moving on through my sustainability training, and as I was talking to different people, just different sustainable leaders around the world, or talking to my mentors, I then realized that this has to be spread across, and the vision is just much bigger than that. So what we do at Eiffel is we aim to educate the youth. And when we look at the youth, we aim usually at 15 to 21. So anywhere from middle school to graduating graduates of high school, or in your undergraduate degree as well. We want to educate them on financial literacy, and also introduce them or educate them about entrepreneurship. So the reason why we combine entrepreneurship with financial literacy is because it's very important, and it fits in very well together as well. So the reason for entrepreneurship is, especially for underdeveloped and developing countries, is that look at any economy, look at their GDPs, or even look at the benefits that their governments are giving, is that they're trying to get more entrepreneurs out there because their economies are in recession with COVID happening, the global slowdown and everything. So one of the quickest way and one of the best way to get out of this and to create more jobs and to just make it more sustainable in the future is to get more startups functioning. Now with startups, 90% of them fail. So that's why we try to stay with the basics and we try to educate the youth on this in developing and underdeveloped countries.
That's correct. In fact, finance and entrepreneurship go like two halves of a puzzle, but at one point it's hard to differentiate between the both. And I think that goes well in the whole mission of Project Eiffel. And like I mentioned in the start, right, we aren't really taught so many essential things in school, starting from financial literacy to applicable morals and ethics to sex education. So what was the whole inspiration behind Project Eiffel? And I know a part of it comes from Kanye West. And tell us a bit about it. That's going to be pretty interesting.
Right. I love it that you brought up Kanye. Yeah, that's why you're my friend. You're my friend from from when we were kids. So, you mentioned a very valid point, and that's the problem with mainstream education. And why is it that only the Scandinavian countries are actually progressing towards a better education rate, or like why do they actually retain? It's probably because they're doing something right within their curriculum. Now, every country talks about science and look at the periodic table, work on trigonometry, work on geometry, work on history and all that. But it's very good. We require all of that, and you have to like learn that to a certain extent. But in the world we're in right now, it's equally important to be mentally literate. It's equally important to be financially literate. It's equally important to know about sex education, to know about how do I say no to a person when I just don't want this. How do you say no? It's very important to learn that. It's very important to understand how to network, or how do you negotiate, and morals and ethics. That's how do you get a sustainable world as well when you get all of these combined together, because again, everything goes hand in hand. Moral ethics, very simple. Don't litter on the road. That's very good morals. Not everybody has that. And how do you get a safer environment? How do you get a peaceful world when you're educating people on sex education, when you're educating people on mental health or mental literacy? So seeing all this, probably in 2020, I had a little idea saying that I think we can talk about this, or maybe, but again, I was only 19 back in 2020. Not an excuse, to everybody hearing this right now. Age is only a number. You can start whenever you want and whenever you're ready, most importantly. And your age should never stop you. So that happened. And then out of nowhere in 2021, I got my acceptance letter in the class of 2021 at UPG. And then one thing led to another. I slowly started getting interested in this whole concept of sustainability, or making the world a better place. And listening, and as you mentioned, I took every lyric and every word that came out of Kanye West's mouth very seriously, to my heart, to my brain. And we came up with this whole concept of Project Eiffel, and it's working pretty well right now. So that's how Eiffel was born. And right now, the major goal is to solve the financial literacy aspect of it. But we don't plan to only stop with financial literacy. 5 years down the lane, we aim to expand towards mental literacy, towards emotional literacy. And 10 years down the lane, we want to expand towards sex education, towards a negotiating class, and towards all the basics, again, as we spoke about morals and environment. And hopefully, I hope we wouldn't have to do that 10 years down the line, because I hope by then all our curriculums and whatever high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools we have will address that. And now coming to my favorite part of this whole question that you asked about Kanye, what is it about Kanye? Is that the first song I heard of Kanye West was it came out in 2007. It's called Stronger, from one of my favorite albums, Graduation. And ever since then, I've been listening to that song consistently from like 2008 to 2013, and then from the period of 2014 to 2019, a part of 2019, I just kind of got disconnected from like Kanye West as a whole, or like music of Kanye West as a whole. And then 2019, I just kind of like started listening to his music again, and then it just made so much. I think I understood it in a different way than I did before, and like it was so relatable to my time back then, and like, or what I was going through then. and that it really motivated me. And he said it himself. If you're a fan of Kanye West, you're not a fan of him, but you're a fan of yourself. And that made much more sense to me today than I did back then. So I think that's why you're going to see a lot of Kanye West content on Project Eiffel platforms. And you're just going to listen to that word come out of my name a lot of times as well. But yeah, he played a good part in motivating me.
That's amazing to see how he's been like a great part of your journey, like without him knowing that he's a great part of your journey. Like you said, right? 10 and 15 years down the lane, you'd want to talk more about all these things basically not taught in school. And that's absolutely correct. I mean, most of us have so many misconceptions about, basics of finance itself that we don't want to proceed with it. So, driving from that, if you had to like lay down 3 simple rules of basically dealing with your personal finances, what would they be?
I'm going to start off with one is self-control, because when you master the art of self-control, not only will you control your finances, but you're going to get control of your life as a whole. So if you can tell yourself that when I go to the club, I'm not going to drink, or I'll put it in a very refined manner, because like when you just start swiping your card and all that, you're going to end up with, a bill of 20, 30, maybe even 40,000 rupees. So get a self-control over that. Or if you have a junk food addiction, probably just tell yourself that I'm only going to have a cheat meal once a week. And this will be when if I have a coupon, or maybe my office is giving me some perks or benefit of being an employer, or it's only going to be 1 happy hours per week. So do that, refine yourself in that way, and you'll just start getting a control of everything. So self-control would be my first tip. Number 2 is educate yourself about what you're doing. So when you look at education over here as well, it could be about not falling prey to financial scams, because trust me, the most educated people as well, they fall towards those get rich quick scams, or they fall towards those pyramid scams, or they might just get, they might just fall into some kind of fraud, being identity theft or something. So, but there are a lot of ways to cover all of that. You have a thing called secure internet browsing. You have methods and means to make sure all your data, or most of your data, is kept in a secure manner. So educate yourself on that. So that's what I would talk about education. And the third one is don't be scared. A lot of people, or at least what, in our households, in this whole South Asian demographic, is that people think that if you talk about putting a certain amount of money rather in a savings account, but putting that in, let's say, maybe a retirement fund, which is going to compound to, if I earn 20,000 rupees right now, and I put 2,000 rupees every month of it for the next 30 years or 40 years till my retirement, rather than just put 2,000 rupees in a savings account, which barely gives me any interest, I'm going to get, this amount is going to compound much more into a much bigger variable, and I will have a proper thing to fall back after my retirement. But I think that's what people don't understand. So just don't be scared about what it is. Now, I'm not saying that, just go out and spend, or like start investing in everything. You obviously want to educate yourself, as I mentioned in the second point, but sometimes you just have to let loose, and you have to trust in the process. Not everything is going to come instantly, or it's going to take maybe 3, 4, even 10 years for it to fall out to fullest profit.
That makes sense. And like you mentioned, right, the fact that all the money is on our phone right now, it just gives that let loose sort of a mindset where you just spend money on everything. And I think self-control comes in, at least when you have limited cash in hand, you go with your paper, and that's when you have self-control. And that's something that a few billionaires actually follow, that they actually carry hard cash so that they don't spend mindlessly. And that's something great. And something that you've also mentioned is to not be scared, but look at investing in your retirement plans or whatever. And I think if someone has like a dream of retiring by the time they're 35 or 40, I think it's really possible if you think of the power of compounding in itself, right? You don't really have to work for 60 years or 50 years out there. So I think those were some really great points. And, there's this whole taboo around investing in general, like investing into stock markets, shares. I mean, these terms in itself, right? Trading, investing, stock markets, you aren't well educated enough. I think a part of the taboo related to investing comes from education. But what do you think could be the other reasons that our Indian parents aren't well convinced with us to invest in these platforms?
No, of course. I mean, the thing with words like investing or bonds, insurance, where venture capital or a futures trade, equity and all that is, they just sound so cool that people, they're either too lazy to get themselves educated, or they follow some public norm, or they just think that they look at movies as sources of education, which is not really advisable to do. And the problem with that is it's like a generation fall off here. So like maybe one parent had a very bad experience because he didn't invest in the right time, or he wasn't lucky, or whatever happened, he lost a certain amount of money. So being a parent, he would not want his child to go through the same thing, but that you're actually putting your child back. You're not letting your child move forward if you're doing that. So that could be one reason. The second reason could be very simple. The parents aren't educated about how the whole game, or how the whole concept of investing works, and what is compounding, what is a profit, or when should you sell, when should you pull out, and all that. So education is I would say 80% of the problem comes from education, and 20% of the problem comes from previous problems and existing whatever scams or fraudulent things that you see in the news happening. Right, scared of risk is 20%, but 80% is education. And if we can actually remove that 80% of education, most of the problem is solved right over there, because the remaining 20%, I think it's always going to say that there's always going to be some guy who's going to find a new way to hack into your phone, or probably come up with some other scheme to fool people and make money off that. But that 20% is the risk factor, uncontrollable, which is nothing what we can do. But that 80% we can definitely work on.
That really makes a lot of sense. I in fact have like a few, I don't know, you tell me if they're myths, but I think they're myths. Give your perspective on them, right? The first one being, you need a lot of money to begin investing.
Absolutely wrong. You can start your investment from 10,000 rupees right now, or even 5,000 rupees right now. But given the amount you have, rather make it a calculated risk. When you have 1 crore, you can like put it out, and like you wouldn't really have to. You would obviously want to, but like the stakes aren't that high, right? So I mean, the stakes are high because it's much more. But when you have 5,000 rupees, start off with probably a simple SIP or something which would give you returns, and like a solid amount of returns, and the risk factor is very low. So consult an expert, or look at the product that you're investing in. Is it a mutual fund, or like what is the guaranteed amount of money that I will get back? Start off with that. It will take some time. It might take a few months, or it might take a year, and then slowly take advantage of that, and then start doubling, tripling as you move on. It moves on that way, but start doing that. But there's no minimum amount that you have to keep in mind, because again, there are people in the US, if you invested $400 in Apple in 2008, you would be sitting on at least $5,000 right now, or at least $7,000 right now. So as simple as that. If you invested in Reliance in 1990, let's say you invested 4,000 rupees back then. 4,000 rupees is probably worth of 10,000 rupees right now. So you invested 4,000 rupees back then in the 90s or early 2000s, you would easily be sitting at least 20,000 right now, at least. So compounding, you have to be patient as well over there.
Right. That is really well said. And I think I've covered a part of this before. And now that our generation is more exposed to all these apps that we have on hand, like, for example, the Indian Conclave collaborated with Grow recently. And what we essentially did was to understand the basics of investing. And like you mentioned, education is all the root cause. So once I think that is eliminated, people will be more open. And it's good to see the society being a little more open to investing. And I think that, in fact, gets a lot of ties broken, and more encouraging more people to invest. And I think the second part is also about investing, basically a savings versus investment thing, right? The myth that investments are too risky, where you can almost lose all of your money. So it's better to save instead. What do you have to say about that?
One word: inflation. So when you save, or like, I'm just going to put my money in my wallet, or I'm going to follow the old style or like old school methods of putting all that money under my mattress or in my pillowcase, or I'll just put it in a simple savings fund, is go ahead, do that. No one's going to stop you, but just understand that money, actually, the value will depreciate as you move on, because there's a concept called inflation. And that is that or the inflation rate. And given the current times, it's only going to get worse. So what would you be smart? You can beat, there are ways to beat inflation, move your money around, put it in different forms of investments. It could be an asset you could invest it in an asset, which would be appreciating, like for example, land. Now, again, you would want to do your research, you would want to get educated on that, or you could maybe put it in a few stocks, which you believe, or you could open your own, you could start a whole portfolio and ensure that you're beating investment. But savings it's great to have, it's very important to have, and it's very essential to have. But again, savings won't save you completely. Like if you're a person that's thinking to work until you're 50 or 60, and like you want to have that kind of lifestyle, that kind of hustle, savings won't get you through, because you're going to have kids to put through college. You're going to have health crisis that might come up unknowingly. You might, you never know what's going to happen. So there's only so much of amount that you can save. So put an amount for your savings and put an equal amount to your investments, and let that do majority of the work for you.
Right. And the fact that you brought a crisis, it gets me to, it sort of segue to my next part. That is, credit cards serve only for emergency purposes. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, credit cards are very interesting because, some people actually built their financial empire on smartly using credit cards. And there are people that went bankrupt because they just use their credit card for everything. So
Like
as a student, and again, you have a lot of opinions on credit cards. Some people are like, don't use credit cards at all, which is completely wrong. You're going to have no credit score, and you're going to be paying like maybe triple the amount of interest what a normal person with a good credit score would be having. So that's a huge mistake. Don't avoid doing that. But as a student, follow this, or, from a student's perspective, I would say you don't have to buy everything on your credit card, but have one credit card, and then make sure that you understand what this credit card is. Is it a rewards credit card? And what rewards is it giving me? Is it giving me cashback? So cashback would be probably the thing that I would make most use of, because I'm a student. And with this cashback, maybe I can get 30% off on my next purchase for movie tickets, or I can get 20% off at a particular restaurant, or maybe at a particular brand that I'm buying clothes off. Or if I'm a person that travels a lot, I would want to get a rewards on a travel package, or on a miles, or if I want a business card, like am I running my own business? What am I looking at? Like what are the benefits that this company is giving me? So understand understand the product first. Educate yourself over there first. That's the first step. Second thing is, once you do that, start rationalizing your purchases. So you have your hard cash, you have your credit card. Now, credit card, what's the concept? You're going to have this much as your monthly limit. You can spend, and then if you exceed that, well, you're going to have to pay interest on that, and then it's just going to add on to your worries. So don't get there first off. If your monthly limit of spending on a credit card is, say, 25,000 rupees, probably make all the minimal purchases off that credit card. So when I go to grocery shopping, don't spend your whole grocery bill on that. Maybe spend you might need to get utilities once a month. So this could be your toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo, body wash, moisturizer, and all that. Let's say it ranges to 7,000 rupees. Just use that 7,000 rupees over there. And then the remaining 2,000 or 3,000, it could be miscellaneous expenses, and stop it right over there. Put a limit to that. Tell yourself, you're not going to use this card anymore. That way, your credit score is building, but you're not going into debt by paying interest, or you're not maxing out all your credit card limit. And that's a very smart way to go. And it's also the best way and the easiest way to go on as a student, at least in my opinion.
I like how everything boils down to just educating yourself about, what this credit card does, different types of cards options you might have out there. So, and this comes to the next question, that is, do you really need a financial advisor to always start investing, or can you do it by yourself?
I'm going to give my same answer again. Education. It comes down to education. But, in a few, for a few moves that you will take, it is recommended actually to get the help, or at least consult a professional who has experience in this particular area. So if you're planning to probably go on to a multi-million-dollar deal and sign off a huge real estate deal, or throw in a huge stake of your money in a new startup, or if you're handling like large amounts of money and you feel that you actually require that second or third opinion, there's no harm in doing that, and there's no shame in doing that as well. It's actually recommended that you do that, so that it's your money that you're going to lose end of the day. So you're just going to understand the risk over here. It's going to be a very nice analysis or probably a diagnosis per se. I would put it under that. So there's no wrong in doing that. But again, keep this in mind. If I'm gonna go to an advisor, I'm gonna have to pay him some amount of money. So what is this gonna look at? So if I want to invest in one particular thing and it's guaranteed that I get 1 lakh rupees in that. So in that 1 lakh rupees, I would have to pay in at least 10,000 rupees of consulting fees to this advisor. So is this worth it? Would that like do the math right over there? It might take some time, but it's definitely worth it. And try to be as rational as possible. Think about the risk. Think about how new of an investment this is to you and how new of an approach this is to you. And then you will be your best assessor. So you can follow your gut feeling, obviously. That's what most investments are. Or you can always have your safety options, which are your financial advisors. And it's actually recommended. There's nothing, there's no shame and there's nothing wrong in getting a financial advisor. But again, it's going to come down to what are you doing and can you afford it, number one, as well, because you don't want to show off. So how well will that fit in with your monthly or annual plan?
Yeah, I think it's important to remain calculated, especially when you're looking for financial advisors. But again, you don't always require a financial advisor. I mean, if you're good and well read with the terms out there, I think you can do things independently by yourself if you know things correctly. And
absolutely,
if someone had to start their journey of financial literacy right from A to Z, do you go to a particular resource at the end of the day? With respect to knowing more about finance or personal finances in specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the whole concept of financial literacy is a huge umbrella, and you just have so many topics under that. So it depends on what we're looking at and what's my age, what are my financial goals, because every person has a financial goal. It could be a 10-year-old, it could be a 20-year-old, it could be a 50-year-old. So depending on your financial goals, understand that. And first understand what a financial goal is, because that also comes under financial literacy. So once you come to an understanding that I want to do this, or like these are my dreams, start looking at what's going to put you over there. And some resources that we actually use here, which are credible or like that we like to, some of our go-to resources are Investopedia, all your definitions, and you actually have a very fun trading game over there as well. You can learn a bit about the stock market there. So we that is one of our go-to resource. Just get yourself more curious over there, understand, educate yourself over there. And then by the time you get your first salary, you already know what you're doing. And people around you are going to be like, can you be my financial advisor? You can make some money off that as well. So do that. It's just start educating yourself on maybe 1 or 2 terms a week. And then that's just going to grow into your interest. And you're going to save a lot of money. And you're also going to make much more money than the amount that you're saving.
Right. That makes sense. I think you can also go follow Project Eiffel on Instagram and
of course,
get some financial insights every day. Now let us talk a bit about entrepreneurship in specific, given that you're an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur to be precise. How do you put yourself as an entrepreneur in the world of hustle culture? I would like to know your perspective on the whole hustle culture itself. And in the process, do you often struggle managing your professional and personal life?
When you look at hustle culture, we often, tend to relate it to sleepless nights and just pushing through, just pushing and pushing and pushing. And people think that you're going to have no social life if you have a hustle culture. But then you can actually have a hustle culture with also balancing whatever your routine life is, whatever your interests are in your personal life. So putting to that, I'm not going to deny there are going to be a lot of sleepless nights. And I actually had a whole week of them last month. And it's all worth it, though, end of the day, because it puts your organization to where you are working towards. And end of the day, the satisfaction is your vision is coming to a reality. Your dreams are coming to a reality. So I think that's one of the biggest fruit of hustle culture. But then again, in the world we're living in right now, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, or everybody claims that they're doing this, I'm going to do that. And because everything is accessible to everyone. So you have to be very careful over there as well. Like, how well is that going to fit to my plan? And understand, like, sometimes you can get something done in like 2 hours, and like we end up in the whole terminology of hustle culture, we end up spending like a whole night on that. And then the next day in the morning, we're like, oh shit, I was so stupid. I could have done that over there. So that's one thing with hustle culture. But again, there's never a loss. Like, nothing is a loss. It's just a learning experience over there. So I would like to call hustle culture a learning experience. Like before you make it, or like every entrepreneur, like they start out the first 5 or 10 years is like when they're understanding everything, they're figuring it out. And probably I'm talking about those startups that succeed. Like 90% of startups, or usually 90% of startups, according to general reports, fail. So that 10%, it takes them maybe 2, 5, depends on what they're doing. And then once they actually make it to like what their goals are and they're like completely independent, they forget about the hustle culture. Like, it's like it's history for them. So hustle culture, look at it as like it's probably another year of school, or like it's a whole other degree. It's something that no Ivy League and no uh $20,000, $60,000 course can offer you. So hustle culture is a great learning. And coming to like balancing life, uh I mean, I think everybody's like, trying to do that. All of us are trying to master the art of going to school and running a whole organization and yet having a personal life. It's not easy. I'm going to put that out there. Sometimes you're actually going to have to miss out to the parties, the fun parties, or you might not, you can't watch every single cricket game live, or you can't go to every single new movie that releases. And again, prioritize what's important for you. Like, do I want this startup, or do I want my idea to be at a certain place? Because like 3 months ago, I was so enthusiastic about it, but like, where am I right now? So understand that if you're consistent with yourself over there, right, most of your work-life balance is done there. Because there are people that run 3 companies a day and that have a family, and that they still, they go to the gym and they work out for like 2 hours a day, and then they still invest, and then they still go out to a party maybe once or twice a week. So if they can, we all have the same 24 hours a day. And me and Chaarmikha were actually, we speak about this like every single time we meet up, or like we meet up like once a month or something, and we're always like, how do we do this, how do we do that, so much of work and all that. But then the one thing that's always there that I observed at the end of our conversations is that, okay, I think we have to rationalize our time management in a better way. So let's cut out doing this stupid task, or like let's stop wasting time here. So if you can just get to that self-actualization, you're going to balance your hustle life, you're going to balance your personal life and everything.
And it is sort of true that, the hustle culture really doesn't envision or look at sleepless nights. You can still hustle having a good schedule throughout the day. It's like time is like a suitcase, and the more organized you are, the more things you can fit into it. And it is important to prioritize what you really want to fit into that little capsule of time. So I think that's really well said. I mean, you don't have to get burned out giving the hustle, calling it hustle culture. And initially, it might be a little hard though, but for anyone who's starting out, but I think experience gets it all. And the last question is, I think you've also given a part of the answer before. How do you manage your time in specific? Do you have a to-do list? So much productivity in your day, you do your school, you do your organization, and you have internships going on the side. How do you really manage all of them together?
Right. So like, right now, I'm a full-time student, and then I work as a marketing associate at a startup. I run my own nonprofit, and I mentor a bit here and there to like other people that are starting their nonprofits, or that are just looking to start their own venture. And some people, they want to learn about public speaking or stuff. So I do that. I do that, like maybe I spend about a couple of hours a week doing that. So this is what my daily schedule would look like. But again, this is just work. So I always make sure to at least try to get at least half an hour or 45 minutes of any kind of physical activity a day. And the remaining amount of time, what do I have? Like maybe 2 or 3 hours, if I'm lucky, 3 hours, but 2 hours left at my disposal. And what do I do over there? I might meet a friend, I might just go for a walk, I might spend time with my family, or I might watch a movie. But the way to make it easier for me is that I struggle completely. Like when I started Eiffel when I had my summer vacation, and that means I had no school then. So that's like about 6 hours or 6 to 8 hours of my day completely free. But I struggled the most back then, because time was just going here and there. Like I would spend up 1.5 hours just eating lunch. I would spend like half an hour taking a shower. It would just be that I was very laid back. And that's when, like after a month, I sat down, like I try to kind of like how you budget or like you track your expenses. I follow the same thing on like tracking where my time is going. And then you can do it either on a spreadsheet, you can do it on Google Calendar, whatever it is, whatever works for you. I just wrote it down, and then writing it down gave me a mental image. Like it let me give me a very good picture. So like I sleep from anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on like how tiring of a day I had. So I need those hours, and that's very important. And then after that, what do I do? If I'm going to work right now, work is going to get done. So if we're looking at setting up our goals for next week, or if we're trying to build this curriculum for this coming class, or are we looking to, if I'm looking to train my teacher for the next class, 2 hours is set, it has to get done right over there. Because if there's some excess of work or there's some backlog, I have to add that to the next day, and then it's going to cut down something else to the next day, and that's just going to cut down more of my personal time. So think of it in that way. And then I always have a mental clock. It's always like, I watch a lot of sports as well. So it's always like I'm on a field of it could be any sport, it could be basketball or anything. So it's like there's always that mental clock in my image. Like I have my reminders. I make sure to have two clocks on my table. So one is with Indian time. And right now, since like we have a lot of work coming up with in Europe, we have Central Eastern time, which is in Europe. So that's the other clock. And then the third clock is on a watch, which I keep right over here, which is Eastern Standard Time, which is another time zone which I work very very regularly with. So that way, I'm actually saving about 1 or 2 minutes every day from just like shifting from app and typing down every time zone and all that. So again, you could have a complete work clock on your monitor, but like do something which is easy for you. And these are very small hacks, but they will end up doing majority of the job for you, because I cut down my showering time from 30 minutes to 5 minutes. And yes, in 5 minutes, I get my whole body clean in that time. So have these really small but useful hacks. Time management, it'll make it easier for you, because why do you want to take it on as a big tax? Like, when if you want to build a skyscraper, like if you look at the Empire State Building, they didn't build all of that in like 1 month or in 1 week. They took almost 2 years to build that. So, and how did they do it? They went brick by brick, floor by floor. Same concept over here. And it's the same thing with building a super team as well. Like, any cricket team that was built or whatever. It's not like you get in 11 star players completely at one time. You build it around one thing. You find out, is bowling my core ability, or like, am I a strong batting team? And you want to build your team around that. So I take that same approach within time management. I try to understand that, these tasks are time consuming. So let's try to cut down time, or let's try to cut down whatever unnecessary task that is there, get it done as quickly as possible. And the last tip that I would give to any entrepreneur, or to any leader in general, is delegate. Know how to delegate. So there's a misconception that delegation is like giving your work off to someone and like just sitting back, but that is wrong. How do you delegate? Bring your team in, teach them, let them know that this is how I'm going to do it. So this is the level of commitment I need. This is the bar, and then teach them. It might take once, twice, maybe even 4 or 5 times, but it's completely worth it. So teach them on what needs to be done, or like how you would do it, and the tasks that are required to be done from their end. You wouldn't have to really spend a lot of time to go back and then be like, to recheck or to again train them over there. So do that. Maintain your team in a very, very clinical manner. Managing time won't be a big deal for you.
That's true. And this brings me to one last question that I had in mind. That is, if there would be one lesson you've learned from your journey of entrepreneurship, doesn't have to be from yours, or you just started off and you're a long way ahead, right? What would be that one lesson you have learned in your journey of entrepreneurship?
Self-belief. I mean, if you don't have confidence in yourself, why on earth should anybody else have confidence in you? Again, I'm gonna relate that to Kanye West again, because like he helped me over there, but to every other sports athlete that I looked up to, and to every person that said no to me, and to me as well, like you have to end up giving yourself credit as well at the end of the day. So it might come off as narcissistic or whatever, but like doesn't matter. You shouldn't care about what people think. End of the day, is your goal getting done? Is job are you getting your work done? And are you helping people? Because like that's what we want to do, right? So, and no harm is being done. So like, what's the point of loving yourself? If you're loving everybody, why shouldn't you love yourself? So mix that self-love with self-belief. That was one thing which really taught me, and like it helped me become a better person. It helped me like a lot of my anxiety issues were like addressed right over there. And it just had my quality of work increased as well. Like whatever I did, I saw the quality increased, but the time I spent on that reduced. So and a lot of this, for some people, it might not even make sense. They're like, how is confidence being related to time management? So it actually is related. It's like sustainability again. Everything is interrelated. So I would say believing in myself was one of the best things that happened, and a lot of learning experiences from that as well.
Right. And, like you mentioned, Rome wasn't built in a day, or, the whole sports team isn't built in a day. It's all about the process and the trust you have on the process that you're going through. And like you mentioned, self-belief is something that gets you on the top of the game. And again, you shouldn't confuse like self-belief with overconfident at a point, right? And I think drawing that line is important as well. Thank you so much for actually answering all these questions very patiently. And it was great having this conversation with you, Tarun.
Thank you for having me here, Chaarmikha. It was just like another conversation I have with you. Always fun, and looking forward for the next one.
Thank you so much. If you've listened till here, you're someone who's constantly curious and hungry to learn more about finance, entrepreneurship, and other inspiring stories. Don't forget to follow this podcast by the Indian Conclave on all platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. See you next Sunday. This is Chaarmikha again, and signing off.